The sounds of children at play, kids just being kids, the joys and happiness of innocence and youth. These are the things every child deserves. But far too often, a child's happiness and innocence are shattered by a very preventable tragedy: child abuse. Not every child abuse case is reported. In fact, millions of kids silently suffer from abuse. It's estimated as many as 2 million child abuse cases a year are never reported. Of the more than 1 million cases confirmed each year in this country, 1 out of every 3 of those kids will be abused again and again if there is no one to stop it. Child abuse is a crisis in this country, and although we may never be able to end it completely, by being aware of it, looking for it, we can identify it, and we can stop it before it ever hurts another child.
The numbers are shocking, but they're true. Thousands of kids are abused every day in the United States, and each day, more than 3 of those children will die as a result of child abuse or neglect in their home. So, how can we stop that from happening? By knowing what to look for, what questions to ask, where to go, and who to talk to when you suspect a child is being abused. Now, a warning. Some of the images that you will see in this presentation will be difficult to watch. There's nothing pretty about child abuse. For most in our society, it's unimaginable, but it is, unfortunately, a reality.
Coming to an office to see another dead child can be very depressing.
Dr. Philip Keene spends his days investigating how children die.
One of the earliest cases still rings in my memory was an immersion of a child in scalding hot water. Also taking coat hangers and banging the child with coat hangers so that you have the pattern of the coat hanger imprinted on the skin, or wooden spoons, leaving the print of the spoon on the body.
As one of the thousands of medical examiners across this country, he has the grim task of being the final voice for a child who has died as a result of abuse. Most of the children who die in this country are younger than 5 years of age. Of these fatalities, 38% of those children will be under the age of 1. And more of those children die from child abuse and neglect than any other single leading cause of death.
There are children who come to be examined in a medical examiner's office who don't need to come to a medical examiner's office. Their deaths could have been prevented. And whatever efforts that we can put forth as society to be supportive and educational and preventative up front to keep them from coming to see me, nothing would make us happier.
There are many faces of child abuse, and about 1 in every 4 of the kids being abused is being victimized by more than just one type of abuse. Now, experts classify child abuse into 4 different types, and we're going to explain each one of them for you. We are going to first look at neglect, which accounts for more than half of all child abuse cases. Then we'll look at physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. Each of these types of abuse is identified differently, but they all have one thing in common: they hurt kids and they destroy lives. Child neglect is defined as the chronic failure of a parent or guardian to adequately provide a child's basic needs. Neglect represents the most common form of abuse. It accounts for nearly 60% of all abuse cases. And although it's the most pervasive, neglect is often one of the hardest to clearly identify. You're not looking for a bruise or a broken bone. Neglect is not the result of one obvious incident, but a number of parental failures over what can be a very long time.
The most obvious sign of child neglect is malnutrition, kids simply not getting enough food for normal growth. But other signs that can clue you into a child being neglected may include inadequate clothing, especially for kids that live in harsh weather and are never bundled up. Then there's the issue of inadequate shelter. Far too many children in this nation are neglected by being exposed to living conditions that may be dirty and unhealthy. Some live in filth, where rats and roaches carry diseases. And there are also kids with no roof over their heads at all. Some homeless parents choose to live with their children on the streets. rather than take advantage of homeless shelters and welfare programs. Child welfare experts say this can be one of the worst examples of child neglect. Neglect can also include exploitation, forcing a child to steal or beg or work inside or out of the home to the extent that it interferes with that child's health or education. Then there's inadequate supervision, the failure to arrange for care when a caretaker is absent. This can be an everyday occurrence for far too many kids in this country.
We see a lot of this with substance abusing parents who are basically going out to find their fix, and their children are really secondary until that can happen.
As a general guideline, children 8 and under are considered too young to take care of themselves for extended periods of time.
Anyone that's had a 5, 6, 7, or 8-year-old, while they might be able to get by every once in a while, their judgment, their ability to make decisions, their ability to act in a case of crisis is really limited. And particularly when those kids are responsible for younger kids, we have seen some real tragedies occur.
To protect children from neglect, be alert for kids who are constantly hungry, dirty or unkempt, infected by parasites or fungus, lacking in dental or medical care, consistently tired and listless, or frequently absent from school. And be continually aware that nearly 1/2 of substantiated cases of child neglect and abuse are associated with parental alcohol or drug abuse.
Sometimes the neglect is unintentional on the part of a parent who is too young, too ignorant, or too poorly supported by society to adequately care for their child. That's why reporting a case of child neglect to the authorities in your area can do more than just save a child. It can help a parent become a better one.
Because many times neglect is really a parent not taking advantage of help that has been offered or that is available. In our experience, most parents want to be good parents, but many of them don't have the tools and many of them don't have the skills. And many times you can't get those tools and skills in place without making a CPS report and bringing some kind of authority into the family where they feel that they do need to make some changes. Crisis sometimes is the best time to create changes in families.
Physical abuse is the next type of abuse we're going to examine. It accounts for nearly 1/4 of all the reported child abuse cases. Physical abuse is classified as the non-accidental injury of a child, ranging from minor bruises and lacerations to severe neurological trauma or death. And one of the saddest statistics, the largest number of fatalities associated with physical abuse occur to children under 3 years of age.
Thousands of abused children die each year as a result of head injuries, burns, or physical trauma inflicted by an adult who is responsible for the child's care.
All of us should consider ourselves potential reporters of physical abuse, but what's important to understand is the difference between accidental injuries and those which are intentionally inflicted.
Child abuse investigator Russ Huber has seen abuse in its very worst of forms, and he knows just how hard it can be to identify when child abuse is intentional.
It can be difficult for both the professionals in the field as well as the parents or somebody observing an injury on a child, because children do have accidents, and we have to realize they do.
Huber says to use common sense. Accidental injuries usually occur in the form of a single injury on an exposed part of the body, such as the arms or legs, and involve one section or side of the child's body. Purposely inflicted physical injuries are most often found in multiple clusters and are discovered in protected areas such as the back, buttocks, abdomen, or chest. They may also be found all over a child's body.
What we're looking for is injuries that are not consistent with an accident, in portions of the body that normally don't hit the ground when they fall or don't hit something when they fall.
The injuries most frequently seen by non-medical persons include contusions or bruises and black eyes, abrasions or scratches, lacerations or cuts, bites, burns, fractures or broken bones, dental damage, and hair pulled out at the scalp. Of these injuries, bruises or contusions, which are soft tissue injuries, are the most common. Bruises are caused by slaps, kicks, punches, and blows to the body that result in bleeding within the skin. Bruises change color with the passage of time and the breakdown of blood pigment. If you suspect a bruise is the result of abuse, look for other bruises on the child that may be in different stages of healing and that may indicate the abuse has gone on over an extended period of time. As a general guide, a bruise will look red the first days of the injury, change to blue or purple in the following couple of days, then fade to a yellowish green for the next week to week and a half. Bruises will then change to brown late in the second week before eventually disappearing. In addition to bruises or contusions, the top layer of skin can rub off, leaving an abrasion. And the marks left by belts or cords can last for weeks or even years. Other physical injuries that can also leave recognizable marks on a child's body that you should be aware of include bite marks, rope burns, and choke marks around a child's neck, and burn injuries. Those burn injuries can often be the most painful for a child. They are typically caused from scalding water, the heat and flames from a stovetop burner, or burning cigarettes. And although not easily detected by someone who is not a medical professional, bone fractures are another type of injury. In very young children, we often see what's known as spiral fractures. These are the breaks caused by the twisting of small bones, usually by large adult hands. Children with bone fractures will complain of pain. You may see noticeable swelling, and a child may be unable to move an arm or a leg. If a child is injured or hurting, experts say the first thing to do is approach the child and ask them to explain what happened.
What concerns me is when a child gives an explanation for an injury they have, and recreating that, there's no way that it could have happened that way.
When the explanation is inconsistent with the injury, that's when Huber says the very next step should be to call the police.
Going to the parent can sometimes cause more problems than it's worth, and I think a lot of people don't want to report child abuse because they're afraid of getting involved in somebody else's life. And the problem that we come up with is that child is expecting or needs us to help them. And the only way that many of those children are going to get help is if we take the step and make the phone calls.
And remember, a child who is being physically abused may also display behavioral problems, including being unreasonably afraid of his parents or other adults, withdrawn, uncommunicative, or nervous. A physically abused child may arrive at school early and leave late, and he or she may wear clothing inappropriate for the weather and selected to conceal injuries. And as a potential reporter, be observant and specific. In fact, if a child has a number of unexplained injuries, it's a good idea to maintain a log of what you observe and note the date. It will help establish patterns of suspected abuse.
One of the most truly disturbing forms of child abuse is sexual abuse. It accounts for approximately 12% of all of the child abuse cases reported. Experts have defined sexual abuse as engaging a child in sexual activities to which they cannot give informed consent and which violate the morals of society.
There are a number of physical signs of sexual abuse, including bruises or bleeding of the genital area, genital infection, especially sexually transmitted diseases, vaginal discharge, and recurrent urinary tract infections. But complicating matters, as any prosecutor of child sexual abuse will tell you, is the fact that over 50% of sexually abused children show no physical evidence of abuse.
Certainly victims of sexual abuse may have some sexually transmitted diseases or vaginal infections, but overwhelmingly most children have normal medical exams.
That's why Nannetti and other prosecutors like her suggest observers pay close attention to behavioral tips that may indicate a child is being sexually abused. The most common are sudden social or emotional withdrawal and fear of a specific person or situation.
The number one factor to look for is listen to kids, and if they say something about they're fearful of being around this person, or they just don't want to go to band practice or don't want to go to soccer practice, there might be another reason.
If you are suspicious sexual abuse may be taking place, also be on the lookout for sexualized play, excessive bathing, bedwetting, unexplained guilt, aggressiveness, appetite disturbances, either eating too much or not enough, or a dramatic change in eating behavior, and running away. And be aware that frequently the person who sexually molests a child is also